In one of the last videos, I talked about how different things above the mob's head while it's spawning can cause it to become cave or surface spawns. But why exactly does that matter? I mean, why would you care if a creeper spawned with a block on top of its head or not? Well, that's because of caps. You see, this creeper that's under a solid block is in a different mob cap to one that spawned directly below the sky. Now, when the game tries to spawn this creeper, it checks in all the loaded chunks if there are any 200 mobs except for some specific ones like villagers or player spawned golems. And if there are 200 mobs, then the spawn attempt will fail, and that's the global mob cap. But there are also local caps. For example, if there are 8 hostile mobs spawning on the surface, then more hostile mobs won't spawn around them on the surface. But the cave is a different mob cap, so they can still spawn underneath blocks even if there are other mobs in on the surface. Than cave and surface mob caps, there are other type of mob caps. For example, creepers are in the monster mob cap, whereas cows and sheep belong to the animal mob cap, and their spawning will not interfere with the creeper farm, and the creepers in an area will not affect cows and sheep from spawning because they are in separate mob caps. Now there are a total of 5 different types of mob caps. The first one being the water animals like fishes and puffer fishes in the surface, and I believe in one of the recent versions they also made axolotl a cave water animal, so it no longer shares a cap with the glow squid. Now, not all water animals do belong to this family. Like squids and glow squids belong to the animal cap, while fishes and axolotls, well, I guess they're fishes as well. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah, they belong to the water animal cap. The next one is the animal cap, and on the surface it's your regular cows, sheep, chickens, wolves, whatever, and in the cave they you get glow squid only. I think, yeah, it's glow squid only. The next we have ambient, which are bats in the caves. I think that's it for the ambient cap. And for the monster cap, you have creepers and zombies and everything like that. And I think the only ones that different between surface and cave in the monster family is phantoms, which only spawn on the surface. And lastly, there's the pillager cap. Yes, they do have a separate cap. And in the cave, the pillagers that spawn are the ones in the outpost. They belong to the cave cap. And the ones that spawn in a patrol or a raid are in the surface cap, except for some bugs which cause the Ravager riders to be cave cap and mess with the outpost spawning, but that's a bug and they should really be in the surface cap. Now, lastly, there are some mob specific restrictions as well, like creepers on the surface have a cap of 5, while the monster cap on the surface itself is 8. So that means that even if you have room in the monster cap but there are 5 creepers already, then no more creepers will spawn. And they check both their family cap and their own cap if one exists. Now I can't really tell you all the numbers about which cap has the specific value, but you can join our Discord and we have all the information there, or you can just ask me in the comments if you want to know about some specific mob and their cap. Now, of course, there are some things that do not follow these cap rules, and spawners are one of them. They do not respect any family or mob specific cap or even the global cap. And same goes for zombie pigmen spawning from portals that can be in any portal ticking gold farm or in any random nether portal that you have. They do not care if there are 200 mobs or even more than that, they will keep spawning. Now, the spawner does have a small area check around it to see if there are mobs there, but they can easily get out of there and the spawner will keep spawning mobs. Now, even though these zombie pigmen don't actually check the cap before they spawn, they do still count towards one. And I think for the zombie pigmen, it's surface hostile, I mean monster cap, but I'm not really sure about that. And for the spawners, those also spawn the mobs as a surface mob, even though usually they're in a cave. Now, as spawners don't care if the mob is in the surface or the cave when it spawns, they put it in the surface cap anyway. HSS do the opposite, and any mobs that spawn on the HSS are cave cap regardless of whether there is something above them or not. Now, I have been talking about a local cap, but I haven't really explained how the game decides whether a mob is inside the local cap or outside. Well, let's say the game decides to spawn a creeper in this chunk. Imagine every block here represents one chunk, and the creeper wants to spawn on the block with the redstone, and it will check an area of 9 chunks by 9 chunks around the central chunk. So 4 chunks in every direction from where the creeper tries to spawn, excluding the central chunk. And this is a square, unlike the simulation distances and spawning ranges. And it doesn't matter where the player is, the player can be right here, but if the creeper is spawning here, then it will check this entire area, and the player can be wherever he wants. The creeper doesn't care. And this can be made use of in mob farms, because if you have another spawning platform right here, then as you can see, you can AFK in between them right here, and you can have mob spawning here and here, but the both platforms won't affect each other, and you need to have a 4 chunk distance between them for that to happen. And on a simulation distance of 6, you can get away with 5 different chunks in different split densities, as we call them. And this chunk right here will be on the edge of the spawning range if the player was AFK in the central chunk, and so with all these outer chunks, they would be on the edge but still outside the density check area of this one and out of the other one's density check area as well. So that's why on simulation distance 6 you generally see mob farms with 5 different towers, and on sim 4 this isn't really possible to have 5 towers because the spawning range is very small. With the old R54 spawning range, it was very easy to fit 2 different split density modules into a single farm inside of the R54 range, but since it has been reduced to a radius of 44 blocks, it has become very difficult to put a split density farm in there, mainly because you only get like 10 blocks of space on either side of the farm. So a lot of bigger farms use semi split density, which I'll show you in a bit, but it's still possible to use split density. It's not completely impossible as a lot of people think it is. And if you still don't understand, then you can check out Alistair's creeper farm Aphrodite. Now in semi split density, you can see with this chunk border pack that the kill chamber is right on a chunk border, and this kill chamber and the kill chamber on the other side have exactly 4 chunks between them. And there are still parts of the farm like this one which have overlapping density check, but the idea is that the kill chamber itself is in different split densities so that the mobs get taken to different split densities as fast as possible, and most of the time they spend is in different split densities so that they don't affect the other half of the farm as much as they would if the kill chamber was say right here. Now this idea of having mobs spawn in one density check area and then moving them to another one is very common in mob farming, and we mostly see it in portal spam mob farms where the mob spawns inside of portal, right next to it, and gets taken to another dimension which is probably more than 4 chunks away. I don't see the nether anywhere here, so yeah, it is probably more than 4 chunks away from here. And once the mob is in the nether, the cap in the overworld is free again, or whatever dimension you're using. And this, by the way, is Plushy's creeper farm, which has not been made fully yet. Now before I end this video, I want to make 2 things clear. The density check area has 4 chunks in the X and Z direction. It has nothing to do with vertical distance between mobs. And the second thing is that the nether mobs, they all are cave spawns, and if you remove the nether roof, then you won't get any spawns in the nether.